3 weeks ago, a Walmart in East Oakland closed its doors for the final time. No announcement, no going out of business sale, just a handwritten sign taped to the glass that read, "Closed permanently." Inside, the shelves were already empty. The employees found out the same day as the customers. This is not an isolated incident. This is happening right now across California, and the companies involved are not talking about why. What's forcing America's largest retailers to abandon one of the richest markets in the world? The answer is more disturbing than anyone in Sacramento wants to admit. Walmart, Target, and other major retail chains are closing stores across California at a pace not seen since the 2008 financial crisis, and the reasons reveal a systemic breakdown that threatens to leave entire neighborhoods without access to basic goods. Here is what we know for certain. Over the past 18 months, Walmart has closed multiple California locations with little to no public explanation. Target announced the closure of several stores in San Francisco, Oakland, and Los Angeles, citing what the company called unsustainable business circumstances. The language was deliberately vague. Other chains followed. CVS shut down dozens of California pharmacies. Walgreens pulled out of San Francisco neighborhoods where it had operated for decades. Whole Foods closed its flagship downtown San Francisco store after just 1 year of operation. These are not small mom-and-pop shops struggling to compete. These are billion-dollar corporations with sophisticated risk management and deep financial reserves. When companies of this scale walk away from a market, it means the fundamentals have broken. The closures are concentrated in California's largest cities. San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, and Sacramento are seeing the most exits. But smaller cities are not immune. Stores in Fresno, Stockton, and even suburban areas are quietly shutting down. Employees are finding out through corporate emails or local news reports. In some cases, workers showed up for their shifts only to find the doors locked. Severance packages have been minimal. Union representatives report that stores are being closed faster than labor agreements can be renegotiated. Community leaders are scrambling to understand what happens next. For many neighborhoods, these big box stores were the primary source of affordable groceries, prescriptions, and household goods. Their disappearance creates what experts call food deserts, areas where residents must travel significant distances to access basic necessities. The companies themselves have been silent on specifics. Press releases cite business performance challenges and changing market conditions without elaborating. When pressed by local officials and media, corporate spokespeople offer no additional details. This silence has fueled speculation and confusion. But behind closed doors, retail executives are sharing a very different story with investors and insurance underwriters. That story involves numbers that make continued operations financially impossible. There are 5 forces driving this retail collapse, and they are all accelerating at the same time. First, organized retail theft has reached levels that make normal business operations unsustainable. This is not about shoplifting. This is about coordinated groups entering stores and taking merchandise at a scale that overwhelms security measures. Reports from store managers describe teams of individuals filling shopping carts with high-value items and walking out without paying. Electronics, cosmetics, over-the-counter medications, baby formula. These are the most targeted products because they can be quickly resold. In 2014, California passed Proposition 47, which reclassified theft of goods valued under $950 as a misdemeanor rather than a felony. The intent was to reduce prison overcrowding. The unintended consequence was a dramatic shift in retail theft dynamics. When penalties decreased, the risk-reward calculation changed. Criminal organizations recognized the opportunity. They began systematically targeting stores, knowing that even if caught, prosecution was unlikely and penalties minimal. Store employees have been instructed not to intervene. Corporate liability concerns mean workers are told to stand back and let theft happen. This policy was designed to protect employee safety, but it also sent a clear signal that stores would not resist. Theft rates exploded. Some California stores now report inventory shrinkage rates exceeding 5% of total sales. For a business operating on razor-thin profit margins, a 5% loss to theft means the store cannot generate profit. Second, insurance costs have become prohibitive. Retail operations require comprehensive insurance coverage. Property insurance, liability insurance, theft insurance, workers' compensation, these policies are essential to operate legally. As theft and security incidents increased, insurance companies began raising premiums dramatically. Some stores saw their insurance costs triple in 2 years, but price increases were only part of the problem. Insurance companies started denying coverage altogether for certain California locations. Underwriters determined that the risk was uninsurable at any price. When a store cannot obtain insurance, it cannot legally remain open. Several closures have been directly attributed to insurance denial. Companies faced a choice: shut down or operate illegally without coverage. They chose to shut down. Third, operating costs in California far exceed other states. Labor costs are significantly higher. California's minimum wage increased to $60 per hour statewide, with some cities requiring even more. Health insurance mandates, paid sick leave, and other employee benefits add substantial costs. For large retail chains employing thousands of workers, these expenses compound quickly. Real estate costs in California are among the highest in the nation. Lease agreements for big box retail spaces run into millions of dollars annually. Property taxes, utility costs, and maintenance expenses are all higher than comparable locations in other states. These are not new factors. Retailers have operated in California for decades despite high costs. But when combined with theft losses and insurance challenges, the total cost structure becomes impossible. Fourth, regulatory compliance requires substantial resources. California environmental regulations mandate specific equipment, waste disposal procedures, and energy efficiency standards. These requirements add costs that stores in other states do not face. Labor regulations require detailed record keeping, specific break schedules, and compliance monitoring. While each individual regulation may seem reasonable, the cumulative burden creates administrative overhead that smaller margin businesses cannot absorb. Fifth, the customer base is changing in ways that reduce store profitability. Middle-class flight from California cities has accelerated. Higher-income residents who could afford premium products have moved to suburban or out-of-state locations. The remaining customer base has less disposable income. This shift changes the product mix and reduces average transaction values. Stores that once catered to diverse income levels now serve predominantly lower-income customers. While these customers need access to goods, the economic model no longer supports large-format retail in these locations. Each of these factors alone would strain operations. Together, they create a perfect storm that makes profitable retail impossible. Corporate finance teams have run the numbers. The projections show years of continued losses with no clear path to profitability. When executives present these findings to boards of directors, the decision becomes obvious. Close the unprofitable locations. Redeploy capital to markets where the business model still works. The speed of these closures reflects how quickly the situation has deteriorated. Stores that were profitable 5 years ago are now losing money every month. Retailers tried various interventions. They increased security staffing. They locked up merchandise behind glass cases. They reduced store hours. They cut product selection. None of these measures reversed the losses. Eventually, the only option left was closure. There are 3 scenarios for how this retail crisis unfolds over the next 18 months. Understanding each scenario helps frame what to watch for and what decisions communities face. Best case scenario: California lawmakers recognize the severity of the situation and take immediate corrective action. This would require reforming Proposition 47 to restore meaningful penalties for organized retail theft. It would require directing law enforcement to prioritize retail theft investigations and prosecutions. It would require insurance market reforms to stabilize coverage availability and costs. And it would require comprehensive regulatory review to reduce the cumulative burden on retailers. If these actions happen quickly, some retailers might pause closure plans. New stores might even open in abandoned locations. The retail ecosystem could stabilize within 2 years. Communities would retain access to essential goods. Jobs would be preserved. Tax revenue would continue flowing to local governments. This scenario is possible, but it requires political will that has not yet materialized. The window for this outcome is narrowing rapidly. Base case scenario. Current trends continue without significant intervention. More stores close over the next year. The pace matches what we have seen recently, with a dozen or more major closures across California cities every quarter. Retailers continue consolidating to fewer, more defensible locations. Large format stores in challenging neighborhoods disappear entirely. Suburban locations remain open, but reduce operating hours and product selection. In this scenario, food deserts expand significantly. Residents in affected neighborhoods must travel farther for groceries and necessities. Online shopping increases, but delivery to certain zip codes becomes limited or unavailable due to theft and safety concerns. Small independent stores try to fill some gaps, but they lack the purchasing power and economies of scale of major chains. Prices in these independent stores run higher. Lower-income residents pay more for basic goods. The economic impact spreads beyond retail. Commercial real estate owners lose anchor tenants. Strip malls and shopping centers designed around big-box stores sit empty. Property values decline. Local tax revenue drops sharply. City budgets face shortfalls. Services get cut. The downward spiral accelerates. Some neighborhoods reach a tipping point where businesses of all types start leaving. This scenario represents the most likely path based on current trajectories. Worst case scenario. The retail exodus triggers broader economic collapse in affected areas. Major chains close not just struggling stores, but entire regional operations. Walmart might exit Northern California entirely. Target could pull out of the Bay Area. Other retailers follow. This creates cascading effects. Without major retailers, commercial real estate markets freeze. Banks holding mortgages on retail properties face massive losses. Some properties go into foreclosure. Entire shopping districts shut down. Employment collapses. Tens of thousands of retail workers lose jobs simultaneously. Unemployment spikes in communities already struggling economically. Social services become overwhelmed. Residents face genuine hardship accessing basic necessities. Grocery stores become scarce. Pharmacy access disappears. Families must drive 30 or 40 minutes for routine shopping. Those without cars face severe challenges. Delivery services stop serving certain areas. The digital divide widens. Wealthier residents can order online. Poorer residents are stranded. This scenario sounds extreme, but it is not without precedent. Other U.S. cities have experienced similar retail collapse. Detroit went through this in the 1980s and 1990s. Parts of Chicago have lived this reality for years. Once the retail infrastructure disappears, rebuilding takes decades if it happens at all. The worst-case scenario is unlikely to affect all of California. But specific neighborhoods and cities could absolutely experience this level of breakdown. The difference between these scenarios depends entirely on decisions made in the next 6 months. If California's political leadership treats this as the crisis it is, the best case remains achievable. If they continue with incremental responses and political rhetoric, the base case becomes certain. If they ignore the problem entirely, the worst case becomes inevitable for some communities. If you live in California or care about someone who does, here is what you need to monitor and how to prepare. First, track which stores in your area are still operating. Make a list of your essential shopping locations, grocery stores, pharmacies, hardware stores, the places you depend on regularly. Check their hours and inventory levels. If you notice reduced hours or empty shelves, that is an early warning sign. Stores rarely announce closures far in advance. By the time you hear official news, alternatives may already be limited. Second, build relationships with multiple retailers. Do not depend entirely on one store. If your regular grocery store is a Target, identify backup options now. Find out where the nearest alternatives are located and how long it takes to reach them. Stock up gradually on non-perishable essentials. Not hoarding, just maintaining a reasonable buffer. If your primary shopping location closes suddenly, you will have time to adjust without immediate crisis. Third, Stay informed about local policy debates. Pay attention to city council meetings and county supervisor discussions about retail issues. Public comment periods matter. Local officials respond to constituent pressure. If you want stores to remain in your community, your voice needs to be heard. Organized community advocacy has influenced corporate decisions before. It can work again. Fourth, support businesses that remain committed to your community. Small independent retailers are struggling too, but they often have deeper local ties. When possible, shop at stores that employ neighborhood residents and reinvest locally. Your dollars are votes. Where you spend them influences what businesses survive. Fifth, prepare for the possibility that your local retail infrastructure could change dramatically. This is not about panic. This is about realistic planning. If you rely on a nearby pharmacy for regular prescriptions, ask your doctor about mail-order alternatives. If you depend on a specific grocery store, research what other areas of your city still have good options. If you have elderly family members or neighbors with limited mobility, help them think through contingencies now. For those with financial means, consider how online shopping and delivery services can fill gaps. But recognize that these options are not equally accessible to everyone. Many lower-income residents lack reliable internet, credit cards, or suitable delivery addresses. The digital divide means that retail closures hit vulnerable populations hardest. Sixth, document what is happening in your community. Take photos of closed stores. Record dates and details. Share information with local journalists and community organizations. The more visible this issue becomes, the harder it is for policymakers to ignore. National media has started paying attention. Keep the pressure on. Seventh, do not assume that because a store is open today, it will be open next month. Retail closures are happening with minimal notice. Have a plan B for essential shopping. Know your options before you need them. None of these steps will solve the systemic problems driving retail closures, but they can reduce the personal impact on you and your family. In a situation where policy change is uncertain and corporate decisions are opaque, individual preparation is the only factor you control. One thing you should not do is assume this problem will fix itself. The market forces and policy dynamics driving these closures are not self-correcting. Without intervention, they will continue until the retail infrastructure in affected areas has completely collapsed. Hoping for a turnaround without demanding policy change is not a strategy. It is just waiting for things to get worse. Let me recap what we have covered in clear terms. Major retail chains are closing California stores at an accelerating pace due to a combination of organized theft, insurance challenges, high operating costs, regulatory burdens, and changing customer demographics. Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens, and others have already exited dozens of locations. More closures are confirmed for the coming months. The companies are not publicizing the full extent of the problem. The impact falls hardest on lower-income neighborhoods, where these stores provided essential access to groceries, medications, and affordable goods. Food deserts are expanding. Residents must travel farther or pay more at small independent stores. Jobs are disappearing. Local tax revenue is dropping. The economic spiral is accelerating. 3 scenarios are possible. Best case requires immediate policy reform and has a narrowing window. Base case shows continued closures creating permanent retail infrastructure damage. Worst case involves complete retail collapse in affected areas. Which scenario unfolds depends on decisions made in the next 6 months. You can prepare by tracking local store status, diversifying shopping options, engaging in local policy debates, supporting committed businesses, and planning for potential disruptions. These steps will not solve the systemic crisis, but they can reduce personal impact. The retail crisis in California is a warning signal for the entire country. When the economic model for basic retail breaks down in the wealthiest state, it can happen anywhere. Other states are watching closely. Some are already implementing policies specifically designed to prevent California's mistakes. Here is the question I want you to think about and answer in the comments. If major retailers abandon your neighborhood, what happens next? Do you have alternatives? Can you reach them? Will prices stay affordable? And more importantly, what are you willing to do to prevent that scenario from becoming reality? This is not a temporary disruption. This is a structural breakdown of the retail economy in specific California communities. It will not reverse without significant policy change. The clock is ticking. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next investigation. Share this video with anyone who shops in California or needs to understand what is really happening to America's retail infrastructure. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. The stores are closing. The shelves are emptying, and the companies responsible are not talking. But the story is clear for anyone willing to look at the evidence. California's retail crisis is real. It is happening now, and it is not going away on its own.